buildinggreenwichct.com.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back, or welcome for your first time to Building Greenwich. I'm your host, Lindsay Potter, here with your other host, Scott Elwell. And today, as with every Friday that we've been doing interviews with someone locally, we have a complete and total rock star, the editor of Greenwich Magazine, Cristin Marandino.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Cristin.
Thank you for being here so much today. Oh, it's so exciting. The sun is shining.
Yes.
Finally, it's been raining all week.
I mean, I know that weather talk is just an easy default, but seriously, the sun is shining.
Seriously, that weather was something to talk about.
It was something to talk
that
about.
was ridiculous the other
It's
night.
all my parents talk about.
Well,
it's weather and traffic. I'm
yeah.
like, dude, you don't even work. What do you?
frankly,
Do you
I
care
talk
about the
about those
stoplight?
things, too.
I know. I talk about those things. To be honest, I had to drive up to Westport for a meeting the other day, and I didn't check traffic, which I never have checked.
Waze.
Traffic. It was a problem. I mean,
it can take like
it was an hour.
and a half.
It was
Yeah.
a solid hour
Yeah.
because there must have been an accident. But my friend said, "Oh, you didn't check the traffic." I'm like, I don't think I
Yeah.
had But now, guess who's going to check traffic when she has to drive anywhere past
I
exit 4?
excessively check traffic.
Did you do Waze at least, so it could tell you
I
to go
did,
Merritt?
but
versus
after I was
95?
already on 95, and then I crossed over to the Merritt, and it was a whole. It was rough. It was when 95 gets clogged with an accident,
Yeah.
everyone knows to go over to the Merritt. So I wasn't the first, and it was just bumper, like not just bumper to bumper, just like sit down.
Just
you may
dead
as well
sucks.
read a book.
Right.
Kind
hanging
of
out with the
traffic.
person next to you.
But Greenwich is great. Everybody, where we live is awesome. There's no traffic. It's beautiful. Lindsay, you can get your kids to teach you how to use the tech.
Yes, that would be great. You know what we were just talking about when we were offline just before coming on was Scott and I have been writing the description for this show for Building Greenwich. Like, what is Building Greenwich all about? And we pretty much nailed down the show description down to one word that we
the big word. So it's the adjective that goes before Greenwich when we say this is a discussion or whatever we're doing about blank Greenwich. And I personally like complex. And, I like dare I say, a real word that, that describes that there's a lot going on. And that's part of the reason I'm here. I don't want to live in a boring town.
Right.
And complex to me denotes a negative. It's negative to me. Like, it's complex in a bad way.
Right.
But I also appreciate that it's not necessarily. So we were talking
Well, it's
about
all what you associate with the word, right? Like you think of complex, and are you back in fifth grade math class where you can't figure something out?
Right, like, this is complex division. I don't know how to
Well,
draw it down.
Lindsay lives on a campus, so she's in the math.
Well, that's true.
I also
but
have
I-
an English teacher for a husband, and we asked Seth, we asked Caroline, what are your ex-wife? We asked them, who are both English teachers, what word?
Which
which
is so
word?
problematic, by the way.
It was. They both
to go to teachers.
But they gave us great filler words. So
Yeah.
multifaceted.
Yeah.
What is Greenwich to you?
I would go with multifaceted. I think with Greenwich, like when you're talking about it, which people don't understand is also the diversity of it,
Well, and that
I
word
think
came up
that's
too.
right.
But then some people, and I don't want to be too PC about it, but like some people see diverse as just a people.
Right.
I don't even know how to describe
Well,
it.
no, I also like a little bit of edge. And, I like that we're doing the podcast to talk about Greenwich. And I work with a lot of first-time home buyers and people that are brand new to Greenwich. And I hate to say it, it's a complex town. But that's why I'm here. And that's why I sort of came back. And so I don't see it as a negative word. But if you do, that's fine, too.
Right.
And, what you're doing to try to sort of segue this in is you give the whole picture.
Right.
And it's not a boring town.
Right.
And so to me, the antithesis of complex is like boring. That's where I'm
Right,
sort of
like
going.
vanilla, flat,
but does it need to be just a good
Vanilla.
word? Does it need to be good? Just the word?
No, I mean, it's all encompassing. Why would you want to move to Greenwich, Connecticut? Why would you want to live here? Because the diversity of this town, I mean, there are so many different places. We have a map up on the wall. There's backcountry, there's downtown, there's Old Greenwich, Byram, Glenville, Coscob. There are so many different, very complex areas. So to get the conversation started about Greenwich Magazine.
Well, Chris, what would you use? I mean, if you had one word to describe the town as a whole, because that's your life of describing the town, as far as I see it.
I like multifaceted.
Multifaceted.
Because I think I'm hate to say this, but I sort of agree with Lindsay that like
Everybody does, by the way. I live with nothing but women. Women. I mean, this is your day, or your month, your year.
We didn't say in the beginning it is International Women's Day,
Yeah, right.
so I'm grateful to have another female in the room, and you are surrounded by women.
We're getting Max on here. We're gonna get
Evan
on here.
Men.
The entire Werner construction room is coming in here. I'm getting at the odds on my side. At some point.
It's okay.
The odds are not.
It's
on my
okay to
side.
celebrate the women in our lives.
Yeah, but I think I think people do have a reaction to the word complex.
Yeah.
And, and I think multifaceted, because I think when we look at the map, it's diverse, it's all that. But my big thing with Greenwich, and I think we've all seen this with the people who moved here, the pandemic and all of that, and people are like, oh, it's not boring. Oh, I don't need to wear a whale wraparound skirt and drive, a station wagon, whatever.
I can be who I am.
Well, and it's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's art, and there's culture, and there's, there's entertainment, there's whatever,
There's
that
so
you can
much.
get a little bit. I mean, let's be clear. Like, we can't, we're not New York, but you can get a little bit of New York here. And then when you want more of New York, you go to New York.
Right.
So
it's a 45-minute
But that's
trip.
that's the beauty of the town. I mean,
Exactly.
we're a suburb of New York City.
Exactly.
We only exist because of New York City.
Right.
We're tied to New York City, whether you work there or not. There's no way around it. But also, New York City is the reason that it has all of this.
Exactly.
And once again, my day to day, I deal with a lot of people that look at the town being like, "Oh my God, that's so overwhelming."
Right.
And they only see a sliver. They see this is another to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
They see the events that you guys support. They see the people that are online. And we're hopefully here to, demystify and help navigate that. Because the beauty, I think, of the town is that you've got people that are at the events, and then you have the people that don't.
Right.
And you have a lot of quiet people that are looking for privacy that live here.
Yep.
And it's an awesome venue for that.
Right. Right. And there's also like the events and all of that, sure, and all the amazing nonprofits we have. I mean, I always say that to people too, of like, when you're getting here and you're coming to town, and how do you meet people and how do you find your crew? Look at the nonprofits and look, the ways to get involved are huge. I also think, to your point, some people, that's not their deal, or they have full-time jobs and they can't commit a lot of time to that. You do also see people find their pods here.
Right.
It's an interesting thing. How like finds like here. And
and there's so much, like you said before, there's so much culturally to do.
Yeah.
Because we are a big town. There are so many different ways that you can get involved. There are so many different ways that you can spend your time.
Right.
On the weekends, you could go to the Audubon, or you could go to the Avenue.
Right.
Completely different experience.
Right. Well, and the Bruce and all that.
The Bruce,
happened,
the beach. Yeah. There are. Yeah, there are so many art galleries on the Avenue now,
Yes,
and the Bruce. I can't. I have to bring the kids. I haven't.
Well, in the community side, as you said, you'll find your pod, and like a large school, like a large university, there's a pod for everybody.
Exactly.
And you have people that spend a lot of time at the events. They donate, they go, they're active, they participate. But then and this is also another touching point. I know there are a lot of people that participate and donate, but behind the scenes.
Yes.
And I love that too.
Yeah.
And no matter your personality, I think there is kind of somebody for everybody, whether it's out and about or quiet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the philanthropic side of this town, and one of the demystifying or debunking, I guess is a better way to say it, of the myths of, people look at Greenwich and it's like, oh, it's all about money and it's all about this and it's all about that. And, the events, or people just go to CNBC. And I'm like, name another town where you're raising $1 million in an afternoon for breast cancer research.
Right.
And at that point, you're almost like, I don't care what people's point of being there is. If it's that they want to put on like their amazing Chanel outfit and
good
do
for
it,
you.
great.
Yeah.
They're writing a
Totally,
check.
right.
You do you.
And then, to the listener, so to speak, is that there are also people that donate to that aren't wearing the Chanel outfit.
Exactly.
And then what I found, it's hard for me to get this perspective because I've been here forever, but I've been with a lot of, whether it's clients or relationships, that people that are out of town that had preconceived notions.
Yep.
It's not just donating to be seen. There are a lot of people that care. And they really want to be involved with kids in crisis or something.
Right.
And they don't want to just go to the party to be seen. They want to actually participate.
Well, who roll up their sleeves and do stuff. We certainly know a lot of those people that it's amazing what they get done.
Well,
and how they're changing
those
lives.
people are like you, because you years ago co-founded the Alzheimer's. You co-founded the
Celebrating Hope.
The Celebrating Hope Gala, which is once a year to raise money for Alzheimer's research, because it's near and dear to your heart. And how many years has it been?
It is. I think this is the 10th or 11th year. It got a little funky because COVID upended it one year.
COVID. Seriously.
But yeah, it's going on 10 or 11 years, and that was actually a perfect example of looking around at me and like, okay, we have a event for everything, and there wasn't something for Alzheimer's, which was amazing.
That's crazy.
Because, as we know, and sadly, since it's been founded, the more and more it's happening with people our age and parents and all of that, and so we started it as like a little cocktail party, and it was amazing. And to your point with that was not a CNB scene in the beginning. That was a like scrappy, let's figure this out.
I love it. I love it.
And people jumped on board because of the cause. And then, the more you talk to people, you can't find somebody who hasn't been impacted by it in some way or another.
Well, and there's an article in the New York Times just this morning about a drug that I guess the FDA is now retesting, and it was supposedly going to be passed, and which was unfortunate, but we will hope that it does get passed eventually. But so that event, and that's just one of the things that you do. So we're here to talk about you. You are the editor. You also grew up here for most of your life, for all of your life. You went to school here, and I'd like to know a little bit about you before you became the editor of Greenwich Magazine. So you've been there for
since dinosaurs. How I became an editor, well, that was just senior year in college. I decided to completely change what I was going into. I went to Boston University, majored in mass communications, concentration in advertising. Had internships in the city, in Australia, all over, blah, blah. Everybody was very invested in me going into advertising. And my senior year, I was like, I'm going to go into magazines. Why? I literally cannot tell you why. I have no idea why. No idea why. And then how I came to Greenwich Magazine, and this was what I had mentioned in there. I had sent Greenwich Magazine a resume when I graduated from college in 1994. Because, of course, hometown magazine, you send it, whatever. Never heard back from them. Fast forward, I went on to work for other magazines, and then I was, the magazine I was working for had been sold, and it was moving to Virginia, and I was not going to move to Virginia. Yeah. And a friend was like, well, Moffley. I'm like, what's Moffley? And they're like, Greenwich Magazine, Westport Magazine. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Looking for an interim editor. Someone's going on maternity leave for Westport Magazine. Great, I'll do that. 6 weeks and I'll be done. That was literally 20 years ago.
Oh, my God.
And then they had offered me the job of the editor of Greenwich Magazine for Donna Moffley. Donna and Jack were kind of stepping back. And Donna's cleaning out her office for me to move into it, and she finds my resume and cover letter from 1994.
Get out. The one she never got back to you. And now I know you're like her family.
She's my surrogate mom. She goes, I don't think I ever got back to you. I was like, you know what? You didn't.
I've not been holding on to this, I swear.
She's like, well, I mean, obviously I thought there was something to you. I didn't throw it out. So those are the cover letter and resume are now framed on my office wall.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and it's like the cover letter of like the Crane stationery and like
of course
the 5 paragraphs. And what did I have to say?
Exactly.
What, I know, but remember how much time and energy and thought went into those?
Like envelopes and
the stress.
I had a major CEO tell me one day, your resume can't be more than one page.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a guy that's run 15 companies.
No one reads.
There's no reason, you can have supplements, I guess, but no.
Well, now we're at a place where someone said to me the other day, if you don't have your resume have AI keywords,
100%.
You won't even get a call back or a look because they're putting these resumes through AI and just having AI tell them, oh, they've got the 3 keywords that we need in this role, which is disappointing to me as someone who's always managed people and had to read resumes and then interview the person because on paper you're so much different than you are
100%.
In real life. And I can always tell the energy of a person whether or not they have the experience that I need or they have the drive to want to learn.
Well,
there's a big difference.
Is this where AI takes over? I mean, is AI they're starting to hire, I guess.
Yes.
They're starting to tell you who to look at.
It's just making the hiring process more streamlined for bigger companies, but not necessarily more, I mean, obviously so much less humanized.
Well, I mean, the AI thing is, we did, do you guys know RP Eddy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we did a story with him. I mean, and first of all, the man is intimidatingly brilliant. And it was talking about AI, and he was talking about it, and it's amazing and the good it'll do, but it's also quite terrifying.
Yes. Yeah. It is everywhere, and it is beneficial. I mean, I use it as a marketer and coach. I use it all the time. Not to replace the words that I am thinking, but to help me find words when I'm at a loss.
Sometimes it just gets the process going.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
it's like
it's
a friend.
replacing the throwing up on the paper.
Right.
You know,
it's my
it's
little
doing that
electronic
for you.
friend.
Yeah, totally.
Life's too busy.
Yeah.
If I could bring this home. And you mentioned that you did a story on the AI guy. Sorry, I already forgot his name.
RP Eddie.
But how do you pick the stories? I mean, without talking about specific stories.
Yeah.
How do you pick the stories? How do you understand how much time, how much, I love your editorial. I mean, I love a lot of the stuff you
cover
guys
to
write
cover
about.
every month. I love it.
But how do you come up with that? And do you have, I mean, this is topical for us, but do you have a list of the next year or two?
Yeah, well, we have each issue has a theme, so to speak. So we will have a few things devoted to that, and the theme can be, it's real estate, it's health, it's decor, it's whatever. So each issue has a theme. So we'll do a few things devoted to that, and then really what it is when you look at the magazine from front to back, you want to make sure, all right, is there something here for everybody?
Yeah.
And you don't want to simply cater to one topic, one area, one type of person. So are there personality profiles? Are we doing smaller stuff up front and like the quicker bites than the, bigger in-depth features? And, we do, because of the way people consume information, we do less and less of the big features. I mean, back in the day, I think we were doing 5 or 6 huge features.
Yeah.
What's a big feature?
I mean, 3,000 words, like a main feature, as opposed to like the front of book, a couple pages of, we'll
so
do
people don't read
stories.
anymore. They just skim.
People, I mean, I like to think people do read, because it doesn't annoy me when people say people don't read. I'm like, well, that's a problem for a lot of reasons.
So many reasons.
But
trying to get your kids to read.
Exactly. But
we are a magazine.
Consuming information differently. So that's, and that is where we needed to evolve. And so everything doesn't have to be 3,000 words. You can, consolidate things, or you can, whatever, without getting all into it, but, break things out and sidebars and all of that. But so I guess my point to that is, when we are going to do these big features, it's like, okay, what's worth that? Yeah. You're not going to throw, that's kind of like vital retail space in the magazine. Right. So with that, we try to personality profiles, because as we said, the amount of people who are living here who are doing amazing things, and it's the high profile people, the business people, the athletes, the entertainers, all that, but it's also not those people too. Like one of my favorite things we do is Light a Fire, which Light a Fire is every November. Mm-hmm. We get nominations in from people in town and it's meant to celebrate like the unsung heroes and the people who actually, back to what we started this conversation talking about, the people who are rolling up their sleeves, who aren't in it for the CMB scene. And what I love about Light a Fire is when we contact the people to tell them that they've been chosen, they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I deserve this. And I'm like, you know what?
It's always that person.
That's why you deserve it.
That's why you deserve it.
I mean, it's 9 times out of 10, they're like, but there are so many people doing more. I'm like,
no.
But are there?
Yeah.
Well, and it's not about the people that are doing more. It's about everyone contributing to make our community better and better every day.
Well, and just the grassroots efforts.
Right. I mean, I was reading about the women that were doing the diaper drive at Mothers for Others, and thousands of diapers that they then donated to families that are really in need of a simple thing like a diaper for their baby.
Exactly.
That they don't otherwise have access to in our community.
Exactly.
So it's things like that those women were standing outside at 4 a.m, receiving donations and traveling all over town to get what they needed and deliver it. But it's those people who would never say a word about what they're doing. It's just what they do.
Exactly. It's like one of my favorite charities is the Undies Project. Do you know those ladies?
Yeah.
Because again, that's something like clean underwear, clean undergarments.
Socks are the most needed of the homeless population and shelters.
Because they were saying they were working, person to person, and they noticed like they weren't getting those donations. Yeah. And so they've started this, and we did feature them, and one of the women said, she's like, there was a man who it was as though you had handed him a pot of gold, for a pack of underwear, No, like that shouldn't be happening here.
No,
and so people are changing that, which I love.
I love that too. And we had said it. I don't know if we said it before we went on the air, but the fact that you can raise $1 million in an afternoon in this town, and then you can have the complete and total flip side of that is what makes our town so multifaceted, complex.
Well, and over the years, as I've gone to events and we've donated and participated in everything, it is, and this sort of brings back to the podcast itself. even for me growing up, you don't realize how much of this stuff does affect people in the town.
Exactly.
Or right over the border. And so, within a 20-mile radius, I mean, these are human people that live that need some help.
Yep.
And we can give it to them.
Yep.
And so that's where, we all think of charities and donations across, abroad and all over the world. But yeah, this is right here in Greenwich that everyone thinks is perfect, but it's complicated.
Exactly.
So you had mentioned Light a Fire, and I know that there are other things like the Teens to Watch. There are these bigger things throughout the year that Greenwich Magazine focuses on. Can you just tell us about a couple of those? So Teens to Watch would be one of them.
Yeah, Teens to Watch.
And which makes us feel really like we have not done enough in our lives or not doing enough. These
and
kids
never
are
will.
and never
never
ever
will.
Yeah.
never ever.
There never will.
These kids are unbelievable. And this is just the people that get chosen. I mean, there are too many. How do you choose?
Choosing, it's terrible.
Oh.
It is terrible.
How do you
choosing them?
choose?
I mean, you're literally like, you're helping to cure cancer, and you're helping to,
In high school.
And you're growing hydroponic whatever that's
Yeah.
gonna it's amazing.
I had a diorama.
Yeah.
It looked really good. An
Yeah.
annual Witherall.
Yeah.
It was a
Rocks were all
trifold.
like-
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's so going through the submissions is you just feel terrible when you can only choose 10.
I know.
So
but
that-
also,
yeah.
it's so inspiring to know that these kids are doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Not only for our community, for the greater good of humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, I read all of them because my husband teaches at the high school level. So I just love reading about what these kids are up to at every school across town. And then, so we have that. And then what would be another? There's Light a Fire in the fall.
We have Light a Fire in the fall. We have Teens to Watch. We have, those are our big roundup ones.
Yeah.
I don't.
Gold Coast.
Oh, Best of Gold
Best
Coast.
of the Gold Coast.
Doing a
Hello.
job.
I hate that expression. I am sorry. Like as a real estate agent, the Gold Coast, the triangular of love or whatever is in the middle of Greenwich.
Oh, I've
Do you know
never
what I'm
heard of
talking
that.
about? There's-
What's the triangulation of love? in
well, no,
town?
there's like the
Go.
golden
Whole different magazine.
golden tri- Golden Triangle is like a territory between Lake North Street.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So, Gold Coast. Can we call? I mean, is Gold Coast a local term? Because isn't Gold Coast like Southern California?
Gold Coast is also Australia.
Right,
There's a
yeah.
Gold Coast in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think there's a Gold Coast in Chicago.
I definitely consider us a Gold Coast. I mean, like our coastline looks at Manhattan. It's spectacular.
Oh, I'm on the water all day long. I got
Yeah,
it.
it's-
But I mean, I'm just talking
I get
funny expressions that are brought up. Like
But no, Best of the Gold
Golden
Coast.
Triangle.
For people that don't know, the Best of the Gold Coast is where we as a community get to vote on our favorite.
And that's very timely,
Service
Lindsay,
providers.
because at the moment we have a nominations round, which is completed, and now we have the finalist round, which is up and live for
Please.
not much longer. So
Please go and vote.
Please go and vote.
Okay, we will link that when we post about this next week. But please go and vote for Best of the Gold Coast.
Yes.
There are a lot of businesses in our town that you can vote for.
There are. And then, the great thing, too, what we do is, so we have the big Best of Gold Coast that runs in all of our books, and then we pull out, then there's Best of Greenwich. So let's say a bagel shop in New Canaan won Best of Gold Coast.
Right.
You'll find out who also won the best bagel shop in Greenwich.
Oh, cool.
I mean,
Okay.
bagel's not so riveting, but
No,
maybe
but-
not a great example.
I
But
mean,
you
there
see what
are
I'm
some
saying.
killer bagels in this town.
Is it straight up so-and-so got more nominations,
Yeah.
or is there some discussion behind the scenes?
No, it's the only discussion behind the scenes is when people get nominated in categories that have nothing to do with them.
Interesting.
Oh no, it's pretty funny when you see anyway.
Best dog
so
groomer, but I sell real estate.
Correct. I mean, that's not that far
Come to
off.
me for
That's
real
not
estate,
that far.
not grooming dogs.
So that is where we do step in because it does obviously need to be a resource for the town and not just spewing out a list.
Right.
So-
Well, and in reading the list and following the list, what I've found, and I hope there is discussion behind, because it's not always just the same restaurants that are popular. It's
Right.
not always the same groups that are popular. I mean, clearly certain places have massive followings and they could just tell everyone to vote,
Right.
and they're suddenly top of the list. But I feel like you definitely have something that makes sure, a new spot that has amazing I don't know, bagels, get some exposure.
We're all hungry now.
Is there some of that, or is it pretty much just?
It's pretty much straight, flat.
Okay.
Now if somebody wins literally everything in every category, so all of fashion would be one store, that might be a bit of a problem. What we do sometimes for that very reason is do editors' picks. So that's something that's not voted on.
Okay. That makes. I never knew what editors' picks were.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's our bad. We should sort of make that clear.
I don't read.
I knew that. Well, I also want to talk about, because this comes up a lot. So Greenwich Magazine is a beautiful, glossy print magazine. And in the magazine, there are the party pages. Yep. And when people look at the party pages, they think, oh, my gosh, look at this fancy town and all these fancy parties. And it is coverage of all of the fancy parties, the parties that raise $1 million in an afternoon, to give an example. But it is so much deeper than that. The work that you do and your whole team does. I know that there are so many people that work for Motley to get everything compiled into each and every, I want to say episode, but each and every magazine that gets put on the shelves, that is, at the front of CVS, where I walk. Everywhere you go around town, there is a Greenwich Magazine to be picked up. And sure, it's so fun to look at the party pages. I love getting inspired by the fashion and who's supporting and who lives in our town. Yep. But I think that it's, again, so much deeper. So, I know that you have this woman, Catherine Webster, on the cover this month, and she is blind. She's on the cover with her seeing eye dog, and her story, which I haven't even finished reading because it's been a busy past few weeks. Story. But, how did you find her? And I'm getting the chills just doing a story about her, because I think about a woman who never gets to see what she looks like on the cover, and yet what she's doing in her life to support people that are blind like she is, and shining a light on that is so important. Yeah. So how did you get there, and the stories that you pick? Back to talking about.
Well, you
stories.
started with events, and then you went to editorial.
Well, I want to talk about.
Events after this?
We will talk about the events, but I want to talk about editorial, because everyone always says, "Oh, well, it's all the the party pages. There's so many parties." Yes, there are, but Greenwich Magazine who's been around for how long has Greenwich Magazine been? Greenwich Magazine.
75 years.
Why didn't we look this up?
Well, we celebrated it.
I know.
Well,
I did look it up.
But why don't I know it?
I did.
Question.
I did.
But
we're not cutting this out.
Well, in my defense, it started. Donna and Jack bought the Greenwich Social Review, and then they bought the Nutmegger, and then they melded them, and
so technically Greenwich Magazine.
I'm looking it up. I'm not texting.
75 or so years.
We just had a 70. Well, first of all, time. I mean, what year is it now?
Right.
I'm hard pressed to find.
I mean, what I only know.
So
it's
I'm going to
Friday
say we're at 76 years.
Okay, great. So editorial. Let's talk editorial. Mm-hmm. How do you decide? Are you the person that decides? Is it a team of people that decide what story will be on the cover?
That is me. So for better or worse.
That's awesome.
That really
awesome.
is cool.
I don't know. Not when people aren't happy.
We're going to piss off more people than you, I guarantee.
Yeah. All right. I'm on board. There are times where there will be a discussion, like when we want to put, back to that. Thank you for saying that, because there's nothing that makes me angrier than when people say, oh, you're all just about pictures and whatever. I'm like, well, pick it up and
actually read it.
You might learn something.
Right.
You might meet somebody new. You might be inspired by something.
Right.
That's kind of what we aim to do every month. So we also, one of the things I am pretty firm on is every once in a while, it doesn't have to be all the time, and it's not for no reason. It has to be something, that's really affecting this town, but doing hard stories, doing stories. We did a story on the boy who killed himself years ago, the first day of school, Bart Pelosi, and it was because it was systematic abuse, basically, and bullying, and the school didn't step in, and so I was like,
just had a big conversation about this because a friend's kid is going through some serious bullying at school, and the school isn't.
There's another episode, but that's we need to address that.
Right. Well, it's not all fluff is the point.
Well, and it was so to the point of putting that on the cover. I was like, I want to put this on the cover, and I want to put it on.
Good for you. I mean, I really think that is one area that's close to my heart that it needs to be hit head on.
Yep.
And so thank you for putting that on and, you know, not
Well,
being,
because it becomes a conversation. And then maybe some change can be made if you shine a light on it and people start talking about it.
Well, and people are like, this is happening.
Aware
and
that
so
it's
we
happening.
Put literally just the words bullied to death on the cover and just in red on a black cover. And,
I remember
you know,
that.
so that was like a back and forth of like, you know, of course, like the sales side didn't want it and I was like,
it's important.
You know, and fought it and won, thankfully. And one of the nicest compliments I have ever gotten is I was at some cocktail party or something and a man came up to me, didn't know him. He knew who I was and he said, I just want to thank you for putting that on the cover. He said, the issue arrived, my daughter saw it before I did and she handed it to me and said, Dad, you have to read this.
Oh, I have the chills.
So it's doing stuff like that. It's doing, we did a story on the heroin epidemic.
I was just about to say,
like,
I remember
not
that.
Here, not here.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is here.
Very
It is
much,
here.
very much
And
here.
let's really talk about it. And with that story, what was fascinating is, you know, working on it. And obviously, you know, it was one we spent a lot of time on and you have to handle delicately. And there was someone I knew who came to me because she knew that we were doing this story. And she said, well, I'm not sure if you know, but both of my brothers were addicted to heroin. And I was like, I did not know that. And I said, would they be willing to talk to us?
And they've survived.
And they've survived.
Wow.
With complication, but, you know, survived. And they were willing to talk to us.
Wow.
And it was, you know, 2 Greenwich high school kids. And
I lost a friend to addiction, and it's the shame around thinking that it's anyone's fault. I mean, addiction is a disease just like any other disease, and we're
the
fine.
fault of the pharmaceutical company.
That too, because
that's where
with
it came
every
from.
kid that I know started with
That's
a surgery,
where it all comes from.
sports surgery in high school.
Yep.
Every single
Yep.
one of them,
Yep.
whether they've lived or not.
Yep.
And Greenwich Hospital is now opening an addiction recovery center, so the conversation probably really got kicked off when that episode came out. I keep saying episode.
Keep doing that. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, that's the stuff I want to read.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, the suicidal stuff and,
Yeah.
you know, the government finally switching, was it 988? They have the new number? I think it's 988.
No, I didn't know
So
that.
they're
Instead of 911?
well, no. So 911 is obviously
Emergency.
But there's a suicide prevention number.
Oh,
and,
okay.
you know, we need to post this. But whatever the number is, we need to post it. But which has an obscene. It has a great rate of lowering them, and so the number of calls relative to the number of successes through the roof. I believe last year they finally got a 3-digit number.
Wow.
I think it's 988.
As opposed to like call 1-900.
Exactly.
I mean,
Well, no, because it's proven, it's worked.
Right.
Let's make it easier for people to get there.
Yeah.
Let's post on it, just whatever that number is, and you know,
right. Every 3-year-old knows 911.
Yeah.
I've had direct connection to it, and like get the number out there.
Okay.
And so you know, back to you guys. I love that you're addressing real conversations, real questions, real concerns.
Yeah.
And you know, bringing this home, but this is more important. But how do you have a set number of pages? Like 10% are going to go to ads, 20% editorial, 5%. I mean, how do you make the blend of? And is there a set number of pages? Like, is there a ratio you're trying to work with?
There's always a ratio. It's interesting. I mean, things have like in any industry, things have changed tremendously. So there is a ratio we aim for, and in terms of number of pages, it's very much it's like getting in the kitchen and kind of like cooking and a little of this and a little of that. So nothing's really black and white. We do, you know, strive for at least 50-50. Sometimes it's not that, you know. But so
and are you battling with the finance side and like they want more pages for real estate ads, or are you battling to get?
There's never a battle of we don't have enough room for an ad.
Right.
I more meant you want more pages for editorial.
Oh, no, because then we'll just increase the book size.
Yeah,
right.
so that's just
exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
and so you do have enough space to get what you want done.
Yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
you know, we have to do it. I have to, you know, sometimes give, and things can always be held and whatever. But no, if there's the good thing about being at a small magazine where you are, you know, kind of the head of one of the prongs of it is. Sometimes you get to make up some of your own rules.
Right.
Within
and
reason.
that's from
You've
our
earned it.
perspective of reading it. That's I don't want it to look like, to me as an outsider that doesn't really
Strike
care.
a pose.
It's entirely ads. I'm trying to think of something but I like, that there's just so much, there is juice in there.
Yeah,
and, and that's why I'm there.
Well, the other piece that I didn't even think about are the wedding pages. Mm-hmm. So I remember, I got married in this town, and I was excited about picking the pictures to go to Greenwich Magazine because it's hopefully, it's a big deal when your pictures get in the magazine. And I love now being, in my mid 40s and with growing kids, definitely not in the wedding scene, thankfully, because that scene is a lot. I mean, when you're in wedding season, it's intense. When you're in your 20s and 30s and you're going to weddings every other week, it's so expensive. It's so intense. And it's changed a lot. Now everyone's destination, everything. It's crazy. But to see the beautiful, high gloss, colorful photos of all of these people's weddings, and everyone does it so differently. It's not so traditional every time.
Right.
Well, what's more intense is that we have friends that's kids are now coming in.
Well, that's
right.
And so like that to me
how
is like,
times have changed. I used to look at Greenwich Magazine to like see our friends. And that,
exactly.
Cool.
I'm like, I babysat a kid.
Exactly.
Like, I thought that, to me, in my mind, they're still like 12. No, they're 34.
100%.
Right.
And I don't care for that.
That is absolutely, I don't buy into the age thing.
But I do love the wedding pages. They're always,
they're fun.
They're fun, and it's nice to hear the stories. A lot of people did grow up here and still live here or have moved back here, which is such a testament to our town and what we create.
Sure.
Again, back to the glossy party pages. Do you want to talk about events?
Yeah, no, I do want to talk about events, and I think pretty much every event you do is a charity behind it, right? Or it's a good cause.
You mean our Moffley events,
No, the events that you showcase in the ads, in the magazine.
We partner. So we're very big on partnering with all the nonprofits in town. Yeah.
So the events that I see, which have a lot of photos of residents in the towns, are all based on partnerships of yours. And and I think it's fantastic. I think the charities are fantastic. Personally, I'd love to see a little more editorial on the charities. And I love editorial. But I think the photos are great because it does get people out that are working hard, and they should have recognition and all of that. What I do want to say to the listener and the outsiders, that's just a fraction of the people. Yeah. I, in talking to people that are new to the town, they do go through those, and they're like, "Whoa, this is intense." And I keep saying that's front row. If you want to get involved in Kids in Crisis, and you're not looking to be in that, there is so much more depth. Yeah, here are the people to call.
Exactly. So those are the one event. That's the one event of the year for most of these nonprofits.
Right. I mean, like what's happening.
The work
before
that goes on.
That. Exactly.
Work.
Committee.
And I'm trying to touch upon that's not entirely Greenwich. That's a part of Greenwich, and that's a big part of it. And I know people that volunteer for churches that aren't looking for exposure, but they're there. And so I think it's I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing.
Right.
And I'd love to see more conversations about those events, which we can do here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're limited to the attention span.
Yes. I think you just proved to me.
But I'm asking for more color on the events. I mean, I will read more.
Okay. All right. If we can get you to read more, we're on it.
Right. But no, I think, talking to Lindsay, I think it'd be fun to, I just keep bringing Kids in Crisis because I know a lot of that, to do an episode on behind the scenes of Kids in Crisis.
Right. Like what is the work leading up to these beautiful, fancy events?
And what's the charity?
Right.
And that is a charity that I had no clue affects people right here.
Right.
Yes.
Back to you guys.
I agree with that.
It's neat that you're promoting that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do try to, and point very much taken of more about the charities. And we do try to do that front of book, highlighting certain things, because you're exactly right. People can live in this town forever and be like, oh, wait, Kids in Crisis takes kids from Greenwich who are in crisis.
Right.
I didn't know that. But
right.
And I'm not making fun of that. I think that's a very real thing that happens.
And that needs to be known.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's
also that kids can work there. I mean, I know of friends that volunteered there when we were young because they wanted to support these other kids. They were living in a safe space and were there to support kids that weren't and learning so much along the way. Now all of them are adults and still participating in supporting the charity.
Right.
The
you
organization.
can make a meal and drop off a meal. You can sponsor a meal for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how many events do you cover in a year? roughly? I mean,
Oh,
I'm trying to think. If you took
How
all
much
the
time do we have?
episodes, if you took all the episodes, you counted all the events, I feel like they're 5 to 10 each episode.
I mean,
or
let's
issue. Sorry.
say
Issue,
we're just
thank
going
you.
to start calling it an episode.
Right,
now.
I mean,
I'm
it's-
going back to work. I'm
my
like, you know,
brain
people,
is-
it's not issue anymore.
Nope, it's an episode.
Yeah, I don't know. So I'd say 100.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
That's
Probably.
wild. And
Not
if
more.
if I were starting a new charity,
Mm-hmm.
and starting a new event that Lindsay and I are going to be promoting events and helping people get started, do I just approach you directly and say, "Hey, I'm starting a charity about whatever"? I just go right to you guys. Like you've got a whole section. How can you help me? How can I? Just
100%. Yep. We actually have a dedicated. Her title is partnership manager.
Love that.
And yeah, we look at the end of the day, we are here. One of our arms is to help promote the nonprofits and get the word out about them through obviously the photography, through running their ads for events in the magazine, through other editorial coverage, be it Light a Fire or just something else, run a book on something that they're doing. So we are here to. That's very much a big part of our mission because, as we keep saying, it's very much a part of this town, and we're about the town. So it all kind of
it drives page views. It drives people that's what people want to see and hear about.
And you just said the photography. I'm thinking about our friend Bob and all the photographers that are out at every single one of the events capturing these events so that we can understand what the events are supporting and why they're there to raise the money and where the money goes. And I mean, those events are, you could find an event twice a night in this town if you wanted to.
Oh, you absolutely could.
If
From
not
the small
more.
to the big.
Yeah.
And we're going to work on that, I guess sort of behind the scenes with our website and get all the events out there to showcase to somebody that's new, like, wow, there's, I've got an interest in botany or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot more than just what's front and center. I'm
right.
trying to like get to the depth behind it. And, there are the donors that, Kids in Crisis, that are anonymous. And that's a massive group.
Yeah.
And that doesn't want to be celebrated. I'm more saying that if that's who you want to be, there's a section for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a section, and you said this at the beginning, there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
And I do think part of our point of life is to give back in whatever way you're capable of, and I think this town provides an outlet to do that.
I agree. And also Greenwich Magazine provides a resource for all of us to know what is going on. So you've got the stories that you do and the glossy event pages, but then there are always littler stories about what's up and coming.
Smaller, not littler.
Smaller. Thank you. And then I know you have the pages that are like what's new this month. Are they what's new this month? What are they? Or like the pages where you pick little products and
just like market pages, you mean?
Right? Yeah, market pages.
Yeah.
I love those too.
Yeah.
Showcasing.
This is the funny part where you're trying to describe something you have absolutely no clue she's
I know,
talking
I'm
about.
like,
Lindsay's trying to back out, be like, "Oh crap, I brought
Password.
I know. Well, I was at the doctor's office the other day and waiting for my annual physical, and I'm reading Greenwich Magazine, and they called me, and I was like, "Can I have 5 more minutes? I'm not done.
Oh my God,
I
you're so
need to
cute.
finish the magazine,
so
but I like
cute.
catching up." And I don't read like Us or People.
Yeah.
I don't read that stuff anymore because it's a waste of my time. But it's good for some people. I respect that.
We get it to our house. I think it's ridiculous.
But
everyone's got a guilty pleasure.
Right, it's a guilty pleasure, but Greenwich Magazine to me is not a guilty pleasure. It is in some ways because of the fun event pages and the wedding pages, but in so
There's
many
no guilt
ways,
in that.
no. Like the interview again, to go back to Catherine because I have it written in front of me and I can't stop thinking about her and the work that she's doing, and she's young.
She's young.
She's so young.
She graduated from Harvard Business School, and again, 100% blind.
Right.
Went through multiple surgeries as a kid, and I mean, just it is.
It's amazing. I mean,
I talk about it in the editor's note to say, like, don't call her inspiring, because in the story, it's like, she's like, do not call me inspiring. She's like, when people are like, oh, you took the subway, that's so inspiring. She's like, I got on the subway, it's not inspiring.
Right.
Like, I mean, just that.
Right.
I mean,
like I'm very able-bodied.
And
I might not
now
be able
has
to
started
see.
this foundation to, for inclusivity of blind people, because think about it. I mean, and there's like a crazy stat in there that 75% of the blind population, and I might be getting this wrong, but I think it's 75% are unemployed, and the ones that are unemployed or are employed are underemployed, are being paid under because it's legal
That's
to pay
disgusting.
people with like vision impairment.
That's disgusting.
And that needs to be.
Well, it's just
thank you for doing that to to address that.
I mean, look, that's her. I mean, she's just
right, and thank her for doing it because it will create change. Yeah. I mean, we had Amy Montemurro on here last week from Ableist, and the statistics on the disabled population, which to think that as an organization they support over 800 families locally and growing, and how difficult it is for these adults to have employment opportunities. And how so many
once they kind of age out, and
right?
Then it's,
and the loneliness and lack of community, and so they're providing that. So again, back to so many organizations and humans in our community right here in Greenwich that are doing such good things. So
for sure,
let's talk a little bit about Restaurant Week because I think we are about to wrap up.
As an editor, obviously you're following trends and what people are interested in, and you've been involved in this for a while. What trends are you seeing? Like, I mean, what's an interest today versus 5 years ago, 10 years ago that, like, are you seeing demand for different things? Or, I mean, you had mentioned that our attention span's getting lower.
Thank you, social
But I'm just
media.
curious, if there are any, like, big
is
trends?
An interesting question. I don't know. It's a hard question because trends, it's hard to say because I feel like with a lifestyle magazine, you're like, well, the trend is lifestyle.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm not really quite sure how to answer that.
Well, how about conversations that are more at the forefront? So, for example, I know that a lot of conversations that I have in our community are around social media and our kids. So, do people approach you to say, "Hey, can you do an article?" There was a guy that was speaking at our kids' school recently about the detriment of that, like how social media is really wrecking their attention span for reading, for studying, for being connected socially with other humans.
Yeah.
There's this ability to be behind a screen, and I know that you all have done articles on this before, and I'm sure you will continue to, as we will continue to talk about it, because it is just as much, the screens are just as much an epidemic, for lack of better terms, than any other epidemic, because it's allowing our society to hide from connection.
Well, and
interaction.
also leads to guess what you can do when you hide.
Right.
I mean, it's a lot easier to do bad things when you're behind a screen.
Right.
And,
exactly.
Can we, and this is offline probably conversation, can we take some of those old articles and promote them again?
Sure.
Is there, because there's a lot of stuff that's written 5 years ago that's just not on the desk at my dentist's.
I actually have I have an episode in my bag right now from 2022. It was a Moffley publication, like all about Greenwich, and it was kind of just an umbrella overview of
was it the Good Life issue?
I think it was.
Yeah, we do that. That's like we used to do it huge. Now we pared it down a little bit, but that's every June. Yeah, I love those stories.
I love
those stories.
Yeah, it was great. I put it in my bag to bring here so that we could reference it because there was so much meat in that episode.
Well, and we could put online the links to. I think let's bring a lot of that back.
Right.
Because there is previous stuff that is fully applicable today.
Well,
I love
reference.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because, you feel like, and that is the frustrating thing, right, about being like a monthly magazine, because then we'll do something and a year later someone's be like, you should do a story about, and I'm like, well, we did, but it was a year ago and we can't do it again. And, so you do feel like some of this amazing stuff sort of, it's still online, but we all know how that falls down. So that would be amazing because I think there are some really important, the heroin, we've done domestic violence, we've done, like what the Y does.
Topics.
We haven't even touched on them. What the YWCA does for women in this town is
actually we
amazing.
should talk about that because it's International Women's Day. So if you can educate us on all of the things, because I know you know more than I do, and potentially more than Scott, about what the YWCA provides in our community.
I mean, I can't like delineate it all, but their domestic violence and their support groups and what they do, and again, for women in this town.
Right.
Like it's not, it's not over the border. It's not whatever.
Right here.
Support groups, the resources that they'll provide for you of hooking you up with other agencies if you need to get out, they provide legal assistance because we all know going through a divorce with somebody abusive is not obviously the easiest thing in the world. So there's legal services. Again, I'm not doing it justice, but
I'll add it to the show notes. I'll look it up and do some research on it because that's good to know and just a good reminder of what's available to women. I have friends that I know personally who are going through situations like that, and it's a very scary time because you feel very powerless.
and what I know someone who has used their services and
save them. Yeah.
Made a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, and we could find a way to index that so it's it can get that in front of somebody that wants to know about it.
Right. Well,
and I mean, not everybody has issues.
Well, we started doing this every Thursday. We're posting about the history of Greenwich. We just were. I wanted more. I'm a social media junkie, but I needed more content for the site, and I started doing some research about the history of our town because we kept having conversations. Remember Meads on the Avenue? Remember D.W. Rogers? Yeah. Remember what we did as kids? And we'd hang out and have a slice of Da Vinci's, and then go to the movie theater and whatever. And so it was really fun to dig into the history. Yeah. And I'm in a Facebook group called You're From Greenwich When, and it's all these old pictures and videos. And this past week we posted about Jim Henson, who lived in town, and the house that he lived in. The man that lives there now, I got a DM from a friend who said, I don't know if you knew this, but Kermit the Frog was inspired. When he was living in that house, there was a frog. There's a little pond behind the house and like a brook that runs behind it. It's a beautiful home on Round Hill Road. No secret there. And he said there was a frog that came every day and visited him. And it was the inspiration for Kermit. And my friend said, anytime you meet the man who currently lives there, who's famous in his own right, he'll tell you that story about that Jim told him about Kermit the Frog. This frog who visited in his backyard was the inspiration for a character that we grew up knowing and loving,
amazing.
And isn't that so
I knew he
cool?
lived here,
Kermit was a
I didn't know.
Kermit was the OG.
It was a Greenwich
frog,
right?
Yeah.
They might want to hide that, but Kermit was a Greenwich frog.
I didn't know. I didn't know that, and that was the story that the current owner, had learned from the Hensons, and I just thought that was so cool. So there's so much rich history,
totally,
and so much that is being created today as we sit here, as we speak out there in the world in Greenwich.
Sure.
We're going to post on Joan Kantz Cooney, who was behind Jim Henson. So, amazing woman, and so
Jim's wife.
No.
Oh,
so behind Jim Henson on Sesame Street. We'll do a post on this. It's a side note, but talking about incredible women. She's top.
Well, good. We've got a whole month.
So right there.
I mean, we've got every day of forever.
You've got every day. Come to my house. You've got every day.
We've got every day. So let's quickly talk about Restaurant Week. So I had been in the beverage space for many years before my new life, but I've been to Restaurant Week every year. It is such a fun event.
Yep.
It is I feel like it's almost every restaurant in town represented.
Yeah.
And they are all serving samples of the food that they serve at the restaurants. There are drinks. There are beverage companies. I mean, everyone from Grigg Street Pizza, who was there last year, to, I don't know, every restaurant you can think of, everyone's there. You can buy a ticket ahead of time. It's at the J House.
Correct.
Tuesday, April 2nd. And then Restaurant Week runs from April 1st to the 7th, whereby all participating restaurants offer a specialty menu at a discounted price. But really, please go out and support our local restaurants. Yeah. They all work so hard, for those of which are still here through that crazy thing we call the pandemic, because a lot of restaurants went under because it was really difficult. No one was going. So all of our restaurants that offer, please go out and support. And more importantly, come to the kickoff party April 2nd at the J House, because it is a guaranteed good time.
It's
pretty
super,
wild.
Super fun.
It's really fun.
It really is fun.
I know.
It really is fun. It's not, I think sometimes people are like, oh,
no, it's
not into
fun.
that vibe, but it's a fun night.
It's casual, fun to see people. I mean, casual meaning it's just a laid back event. Everyone's there to have a good time. It's
You're
a Tuesday night. It's the best Tuesday night.
Yeah.
I have to say, we said it last year. We were leaving, and we said it's the best Tuesday night, just because you get to go in, you see everyone, you have great food and drink. Yep. You get a kind of a taste of, I didn't really know that restaurant was made that kind of food. And you get to meet some of the owners are there. And so founders of new beverage companies. I met a guy who started a new beverage company last year, that espresso martini in a can.
Yes.
I forget.
Which were delicious.
It's delicious. Uber home.
Yeah.
Yes, leave space for the Uber. But is there anything else that you want to share with us about the magazine, what we have coming up in the next few months leading into summer? Because the sun is out, and I think I'm ready for spring and summer.
Yeah. No, I think, God, we hit on a lot.
We did.
Thank you.
I know.
I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
We appreciate you and the work that you do and all of your team. We didn't mention that Greenwich Magazine's social account. So Greenwich Magazine is on Instagram.
Yes.
At Greenwich Magazine.
Curated by the lovely Allie Gray.
The lovely Allie Gray.
I don't know who you are, Allie, but great job.
She is amazing and is out and about on the scene.
She sure is.
She is so hardworking getting us all the information online, and she's a voice for us in the town.
Yeah.
Anytime
really
I need to know something that's going on between the two of you. Yeah, she knows everyone.
Well, let's be clear, so do you. But
right.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. But she's the best. And so they're online at Greenwich Magazine, and then pick up a copy of Greenwich Mag. You should subscribe. I mean, I get it in the mail.
It's just easier.
It's just so much easier. Or anywhere around town where magazines are sold. And your doctor's office. Just try not to steal them, which I'm sure happens all the time.
Or like people rip stuff out of it.
Okay.
Which I take as a compliment.
I do.
But,
I
just go buy a
used
copy.
to decorate my walls when I was young with magazine articles.
Bop.
Yeah.
What magazines were on your wall as you were a kid?
Probably Greenwich Magazine.
Teen Beat.
I had no.
There's no way it was Greenwich Magazine.
It was not Greenwich Magazine.
There's no way.
We'll
get Kylie in here right now because it was not Greenwich Magazine.
No, it was not.
I had an obsession with the Absolute ads. Do you remember Absolute?
Oh, yeah.
I can remember.
I had those pulled out too.
The Absolute ads were. Yes. This was well before I was of drinking age and or had tried Absolute vodka. The campaign was. I mean, I was a marketer before I knew I was one because it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Ads.
Yeah.
Simple.
My favorite
beautiful,
one was if women
witty.
are so independent, why do they go to the bathroom in pairs? So it was Absolute. I've used that expression, and there's some other good ones, but that was all Absolute.
Well, that's funny because I was at a dinner the other night, and one of my friends got up and said, "Does anyone else need to go to the bathroom?" You can make it. You can do it on your own. Well, thanks, Cristin.
Thanks,
You're the
guys.
best.
Thank you, Cristin.
So fun. Great way to kick off the weekend.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening to Building Greenwich, and thanks for being here with us today. We're just so excited to be sharing valuable information with our community. So there are ways that you can get in touch with us. Follow us online, Instagram at Building Greenwich. The podcast episodes in full will be posted to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Scott, what's a way that anyone can get in touch if they're interested in being on the show?
Everything's going to funnel through Greenwich CT, so info@greenwichct.com. It's good to email us or comment, like, share, and you can reach out to us on Instagram.
Thank you again. We'll see you soon.
Bye.